Hello and welcome. Tonight, Central Bank of Nigeria to redesign and reissue the 200, 500 and 1,000 naira notes with effect from December 15, 2022. CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele says existing notes would cease to be regarded as legal tender by January 31st, 2023. Federal government sets up committee to come up with recommendations on how to address rising food prices in the country. And 23 officials of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, face disciplinary action for their involvement in illegal continuous voters registration. On Business News tonight, Federal Inland Revenue Service begins direct collection of taxes from online gaming operators in the country.
On Sports News tonight, Nigeria's Flamingos will face Germany in the third-place match of the FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup after both teams lost to Colombia and Spain in the semi-finals.
And from Abuja, the nation's capital, leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, sues the federal government for 100 billion naira over his continued detention.
And in international news from London, a large crowd has defied police and protested at a cemetery in Iran, where Mahsa Amini is buried 40 days since her death in police custody.
Do you still have the 200 naira, 500 naira and 1,000 naira notes in your custody? You may have to consider spending them as soon as possible. In fact, you have until December the 15th this year. Well, that's because the central bank today announced plans to redesign those denominations and reissue new ones by December 15th. The CBN Governor, Godwin Emefiele, who made the announcement, however, says the current notes will continue to serve as legal tenders until January the 31st, 2023. Mr. Emefiele explains that following the new development, there will be no more bank charges for deposits as the CBN mops up liquidity.
Inflation and liquidity in circulation is top of the mind of the CBN Governor as he calls for this special press conference. Over 20 years after the introduction, the Apex Bank is announcing a redesigning of the nation's currency.
The management of the CBN has sought and obtained the approval of President Muhammadu Buhari to redesign, produce, release, and circulate new series of banknotes at 200 naira, 500 naira, and 1,000 naira levels. In line with this approval, we have finalized arrangements for the new currency to begin circulation from December 15, 2022, after its launch by President Muhammadu Buhari. The new and existing currencies shall remain legal tender and circulate together until January 31, 2023, when the existing currencies shall cease to be legal tender.
In response to the expansion in economic activities, the bank introduced the 100 naira note in December 1999. The 200 naira note was introduced in November 2000. The 500 naira note was introduced in April 2001, while the 1,000 naira note was introduced in October 2005. This time, the bank is taking this step to take control of the currency in circulation.
To be more specific, as at the end of September 2022, available data at the CBN indicate that 2.73 trillion naira out of the 3.23 trillion naira currency in circulation was outside the vaults of commercial banks across the country and supposedly held by members of the public.
The preceding years have seen lower denominations undergo several redesigning, while an attempt by former governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Lamido Sanusi, to redesign the higher denomination in August 2012 did not yield any result. According to the CBN governor, the initiative will help address some of the nation's security threats, especially kidnapping and terrorism, as he believes that terrorists and kidnappers capitalize on the large excess of money to carry out the nefarious activities.
Meanwhile, expectedly, reactions are already greeting the plan by the central bank to redesign some denominations of the naira. One of the first set of reactions came from the financial derivatives company Think Tank. The group says the timing is interesting, considering that the initiative is happening in December, which is a Yuletide season, and the legal tender will change 23 days before a monumental presidential election. On the economic impact on inflation, the FDC think tank believes the policy will not affect inflation, but could lead to a fall in GDP. It also says it could lead to the dollarization of the domestic economy or a sharp increase in electronic payments and settlements of transactions. And on the forex market, the group says the decision could lead to speculation against the naira, which should be short-lived before the naira settles at its true market value. Bringing more on the central bank's announcement, but staying with the economy, the Minister of Finance, Zainab Ahmed, says a committee has been set up to come up with recommendations that will be forwarded to the President on how the rising inflation in the economy can be addressed. According to her, inflation in Nigeria is affected by the Russia-Ukraine war, decisions of central banks in the US and Europe, as well as high costs of petroleum products, especially diesel. She stated this during an interaction with House of Representatives Committee on Finance.
Of this effort, the war in Ukraine and Russia has an impact on Nigeria in the sense that some of the inputs for food production are affected. Also, the decisions of central banks in the US and Europe, the decisions that they take on tightening, monetary tightening, has also an impact on their own levels of inflation that also affects our countries, because we also import goods from those countries. But in Nigeria, we also have inflation. One of the buckets of inflation is food inflation. So when farmers produce their goods and they have to transport the goods to the market, their goods, the prices, the NBS data shows that food prices at farm gates have actually declined, but the cost of transportation is continuously increasing and impacting the cost of food and unfortunately affecting our people. On the side of the government, the President has authorized the National Food Security Council, and we have held a meeting even yesterday evening on how some support will be provided. One of the means will be releasing stocks from the strategic reserves, but also looking at how to provide some support in terms of inputs in fertilizer production, as well as inputs such as feeds. The committee will be meeting again in the next couple of days to provide recommendations to Mr. President that will later on be announced for implementation.
We're now back to our top story. Let's get some more insight into the central bank's plan to redesign some of the naira notes currently in circulation. Joining me on the News at 10 is the Chief Executive Officer of the Center for Promotion of Private Enterprises and the immediate past Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Dr. Muda Yusuf. Welcome to the News at 10.
Thank you very much, Millicent.
Firstly, were you surprised by the announcement?
I was surprised. I was surprised because there are more important issues which I expect the CBN to be addressing. Only recently, Nigeria was downgraded by Moody's, from B2 to B3 on account of weak and deteriorating domestic financial situations, domestically and externally. And of course, there are also other issues around the foreign exchange. We all know what the challenges the investors have been facing. You know what is happening to the manufacturers, to airlines and all of that. Sometimes even very embarrassing situations around the foreign exchange. Of course, issues of credit, issues of high inflation. These, for me, are much more important and burning issues, which I expect to engage the attention of policymakers.
But they did cite, they talked about cashless economy, that this will help the cashless economy of the country. They also cited the need to take charge of the currency in circulation, especially those holding Naira, one of the reasons for its decision.
You see, all the issues outlined there as the objectives or the purpose of this plan to redesign the currency, I can't find any connection between the act of redesigning the currency and these objectives. We are talking about holding the currency. What's the proof that if you redesign, people will not hold the new notes? We are talking about the fact that people are also holding the new currency notes. You need to go to event centers here around Lagos. The new notes that you don't find in the banks, you find them in event centers. People are hawking them. Where are they coming from? Are they not coming from the banks? And in terms of policy, the issue of currency manipulation or redesigning has no impact on monetary policy. Currency as a proportion of money supply is less than 7%. The total value of currency you have in the economy is about 3.3 trillion. Total money supply is 48 trillion. So how will redesigning the currency impact on policy? There is no connection at all. So I don't see this achieving any of this objectives. It's just a very big distraction. It's going to impose a lot of costs on the economy because this is not going to be cheap. We are talking about printing 3.3 trillion currency notes. That's a lot. Then you talk about the logistics. This is a very big country. How are you going to navigate all of that with many of the local governments not having even 1 or 2 branches of banks? Then we have all these issues of flooding, connectivity problems. We have an election coming up. How are we going to deal with all of this? And we are dealing with this in a space of 1.5 months to deal with all of this.
Do you think this will cause panic?
It will cause panic. It's going to cause a lot of dislocation. And my advice is that we need to just retrace our steps on this. Because I'm not seeing any value. This is going to create a lot of confusion. There are so many people in so many remote villages where there are no banks. What will happen to their currency?
Dr. Yusuf, according to global best practice, it is central banks everywhere do this redesign production every 5-8 years. And we're just doing this 20 years ago.
We design for a purpose. And you also need to situate policies within the framework of your priorities. I mean, talk to any Nigerian, talk to any investor. This is the list of the problems that you have in this economy. So I don't think this is the way to go. And in any case, in terms of electronic payment, we are already doing very well. Electronic payment, first 7 months of this year, electronic payment was over 200 trillion transactions that took place on the electronic platform. POS platform, over 6 trillion. Mobile transfer, over 9 trillion. I mean, these are the things we should be improving and consolidating upon. This is a very big distraction. It's unnecessary, and it's going to be a waste of resources.
Just quickly, earlier I mentioned the FDC think tank and what they talked about, this change coming just days before a monumental presidential election. What impact do you see this having on the election? It could disrupt
the elections, yes. Because if people are busy, out of panic mode, trying to see how they can exchange their currency and all of that, it could disrupt the elections. So the timing itself is even very wrong. In addition to the fact that this is not bringing any value to this economy. So I think there should be a rethink about this policy.
We'd like to appreciate your time on the news at 10. Thank you so much, Dr. Muda Yusuf, who is the Chief Executive Officer, Center for Promotion and Private Enterprise. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
In part 2, after the break, leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, sues the federal government for 100 billion naira over his continued detention. That's in a moment. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television. Here's a reminder about top stories. Central Bank of Nigeria to redesign and reissue the 200, 500 and 1,000 naira notes with effect from December 15, 2022. CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele says existing notes would cease to be regarded as legal tenders by January 31st, 2023. Federal government sets up committee to come up with recommendations on how to address rising food prices in the country. 23 officials of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, face disciplinary action for their involvement in illegal continuous voters registration. And Russian President Vladimir Putin watches his country's first nuclear drill since the invasion of Ukraine. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has disclosed that 23 of its registration officers are currently facing disciplinary actions for their involvement in illegal continuous voters registration. Speaking in Abuja at the 4th quarterly consultative meeting with leaders of political parties, the chairman of INEC, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, says the commission deployed thousands of its staff to carry out thorough continuous voter registrations, but some of them compromised the system.
It is the 4th quarterly consultative meeting of the Independent National Electoral Commission with leaders of political parties who converged at the headquarters of the election management body. The meeting comes after INEC concluded the cleaning up of the voters' register, which was laden with several discrepancies. Consequently, some officials of the commission who were involved are now facing the law.
The Commission deployed thousands of diligent staff for the CVR exercise, and the vast majority of them discharged their duties conscientiously. Unfortunately, a few of them did not. The fictitious registrations were carried out by some of our registration officers involved in the field exercise and could easily be traced. Each registration machine is operated using an access code tied to a dedicated email assigned to a staff. There is therefore an audit trail that gives the total number of persons registered by each official involved in the registration exercise. In some cases, some of them made as many as 40 attempts or more to register one fake voter, and yet were able to detect the shenanigans. As a result, the Commission has so far identified 23 registration officers involved in this unethical conduct, and disciplinary action against this staff has commenced.
The leadership of all the political parties involved in the 2023 general elections were in attendance, except the People's Democratic Party, as the chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Council commends efforts of the Commission and cautions against smear campaigns targeted at the leadership of the election management body.
To us in IPAC, the real object of the darts of venom being directed at the person of the chairman and institution of the INEC are merely a decoy. The real target of the machinations is the circumvention of the deployment of the bimodal voter accreditation system, BVAS, the electronic transfer of results, and the other security devices INEC has deftly and painstakingly put in place to enhance the integrity of the electoral process.
The meeting goes behind closed doors as the political parties, through the Inter-Party Advisory Council, believes INEC is well prepared to conduct a credible election in 2023.
To party politics now, where the governorship candidate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, in Akwa Ibom State, Mr. Umar Eno, has promised to create an entrepreneurial hub in the state if elected governor in 2023. He made the promise while speaking at Ikot Ekpene during the flag-off of the party's senatorial campaign.
Exactly 15 days after the People's Democratic Party flagged off its presidential campaign in Uyo, the Akwa Ibom State's capital, supporters of the party are here at the Ikot Ekpene Stadium for the official flag-off of the party's senatorial campaign in the state. Party bigwigs, women and youth groups from the 3 senatorial districts are here to show solidarity for the party's candidates. Governor Udom Emmanuel says the People's Democratic Party is the only party with solutions to the country's current challenges.
The whole Nigeria has been waiting for a moment like this. The whole country, they want to see, they want to hear that through the flag off of senatorial campaign in Ikot-Ekpene, that PDP is ready to take over Nigeria. PDP is ready to take over Nigeria.
For the party's governorship candidate, Umar Eno, his task is to consolidate on the achievements of the current administration and create wealth for the citizenry.
We shall further the peace that you have brought through God to Akwa Ibom. The peace that cannot be compared to the times we lived in before.
The senatorial candidate for Ikot-Ekpene Senatorial District in the 2023 election, Emmanuel Eno Idem, speaks on behalf of other candidates of the party in the state and National Assembly elections.
In 1999, Akwa Ibom was working, but when PDP started governing Akwa Ibom State, Akwa Ibom State started to run. Your Excellency, in your time, Akwa Ibom State is flying. Akwa Ibom State is flying.
Other stakeholders assured the party of overwhelming success at the polls.
All the time local government, the women are ready. The number of votes that shall be produced in each of those wards is what we are going to bring to the table.
The party also used the opportunity to receive defectors from the All Progressives Congress, while flags were also presented to all candidates of the party in Ikot-Ekpene Senatorial District.
We have more stories from Abuja studios. Gloria Mezeke is standing by. Hi, Gloria.
Hello, Millicent. We'll begin here in Abuja with the judiciary. The leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, has sued the federal government seeking 100 billion naira in damages for his continued detention after being set free by the Federal High Court, Abuja. The Court of Appeal on October the 13th, 2022, discharged Kanu of treason charges brought against him and prohibited the government from further detaining him. In a fundamental rights action suit filed before the Federal High Court, Abuja, demanding for his immediate release from the facility of the DSS, Kanu is asking to be paid the sum of 100 billion naira in damages for what he describes as a gross violation of his rights to liberty and dignity. According to Kanu, following the judgment of the Court of Appeal, which struck out the 7 counts charge against him, there is no existing order of a court of law that legitimizes his continued detention. In the originating court process filed on behalf of Kanu by Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Chief Michael Zekome, the plaintiff wants, among other things, a declaration that the continued detention of Kanu is illegal, unlawful, oppressive, unconscionable, and unconstitutional. Meanwhile, the Federal High Court in Umuahia, Abia State, has also ordered that Kanu should be paid 500 million naira in damages, ruling on a fundamental rights suit. Justice Evelyn Anyadike said the extraordinary rendition of Kanu is unlawful and ordered that he should be returned to status quo. Well, staying with the courts, the former Accountant General of the Federation, Mr. Ahmed Idris, and 3 others have been rearraigned before the Federal Capital Territory High Court in Abuja by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. They are facing a 14-count charge bordering on stealing and criminal breach of trust to the tune of 109 billion naira. In a reaction to the recent travel advisory released by the United States today, the Minister of Information, Lai Mohammed, has declared that the United States of America acts within her rights to advise U.S. citizens on what to do, but Nigeria will not be stampeded by such warnings or action. He underscores that the federal government has in the last few months taken a firm handle of security while maintaining that Nigeria is safe. Lai states that in spite of attempts by terrorists to embarrass the government, security agencies will continue to work to forestall any attack.
They are within their rights to say their people should go home if they want to. But we as a country have a responsibility to keep our country safe, and we are not going to be, stampeded at all by whatever any government decides to tell its people. And look, the concrete step is that people should stop spreading unverified news. That's what I'm saying. Unverified news. You see, look, how many school shootings happen in the U.S.? How many senseless killings happen in the U.S.? So, have they been able to predict what is going to happen next? Which school is going to be a victim next? Do Nigerians in the U.S. actually also feel safe? Look, I think you should stop the marketing your own country.
Well, still ahead on the news at 10, Federal Inland Revenue Service commences direct collection of taxes from online gaming operators in the country. That's in business news in a moment. So join us again.
Welcome back to Lagos. Renowned Nigerian singer, songwriter and actress Onyeka Onwenu has announced the official release of Rise Up, a new song written and produced in partnership with the Rose of Sharon Foundation. The song is intended to draw attention to the plight of widows in society. The song will be performed live at the Widows concert scheduled to hold in Lagos on November 13.
Draw attention to the multitude of challenges facing widows in the Nigerian society, Rose of Sharon Foundation is partnering with music icon Onyeka Onwenu. At a press briefing held to herald the Widows music concert, Rise Up, a song written and produced by Onyeka with the support of Rose of Sharon Foundation, is released to the public.
In furtherance of our vision to continue to empower widows, their children and orphans across Nigeria, we are very happy today to unveil a rather unique partnership with one of Nigeria's most beloved music icons in the person of Lady Onyeka Onwenu. It was never my intention to tell you how I feel, but it is not my intention that you just don't see that I'm all alone by myself.
The elegant stallion, who also doubles as a board member of the foundation, explains the reasons for joining the worthy cause.
I was raised by a widow, like I said. Many people out there are fatherless and their mothers are standing alone. So we help ourselves when we help widows.
Rose of Sharon Foundation hopes the song will draw attention to the plight of widows and orphans in the Nigerian society.
Rise Up forms the concert. The widows will be there singing along with Lady Onyeka, and it's to bring awareness about the plight of widows and orphans in our society, not just our local society.
The foundation is also calling for support for the vulnerable population in our society.
We thank God for how far He has brought us, but He has told us that, He's going to ask us to get further help from others so that a lot more women can be reached than we have reached so far.
The Rose of Sharon Foundation, which has been involved in philanthropy since the year 2008, says it's fully committed to guaranteeing financial independence of widows.
Onyeka Onwenu, evergreen. Now time for some business news. Here's Melinda Akilami.
Many thanks, Millicent. Welcome to Business News. The Federal Inland Revenue Service says it has begun the deduction of taxes at transaction points from online gaming deals using the Sentinel National Payment Gateway and electronic solution. In a statement released today, the agency explained that the transaction processing system enables integrated payment services, providers to deduct taxes at the points of transaction and immediately remit it to government coffers. It further mentions that all operators offering online gaming services in the country were required to connect to the Sentinel National Payment Gateway, deduct tax from online gaming transactions, and remit same before December the 31st. To company news now, Guinness Nigeria PLC has declared a 15.6 billion naira dividend and a profit of 15.7 billion naira for the financial year, which ended June the 30th this year. This is one of the major highlights of the report and the financial statements presented to shareholders and other stakeholders at the company's hybrid annual general meeting in Lagos. The chair of the board of directors, Dr. Omobola Johnson, explained that commitment to the company's expansion strategy and better operational efficiency has helped to sustain growth.
Guinness Nigeria PLC holds its 72nd annual general meeting with heads held high owing to the many achievements attained in 2022.
And the reports of the independent...
These are contained in a 162-page annual report presented to shareholders.
The company's statement of financial position, income statement, and statement of comprehensive income are in agreement with the books of account and return received.
The financial statements for the year ended June the 30th, 2022 show an impressive performance with strong growth in key categories. Profit for the year improved remarkably from 1.25 billion naira in 2021 to 15.6 billion naira in 2022.
Well, what we have is a portfolio that includes beers, malts, and spirits, and that's a total beverage alcohol portfolio. And really, because we're so diverse, the portfolio is so diverse, it means that we can cater to the needs of any Nigerian, whether you drink alcohol or not, whether you like sweet drinks or not. So that's really what it is. We are catering to the needs of all Nigerians, and so we're able to deliver tremendous results because of that.
The managing director expresses confidence that the company will continue to tow its path of sustained profitability.
You all have seen that we bought some additional land next to our brewery in Ogba. That just tells you that we continue to invest in capacity. We opened a new production line in Ogba this year, which was opened by the Deputy High Commissioner for the UK. We've just finished another additional line in Benin as well. So we continue to put capacity in to ensure that as the demand comes through, we can serve the demand for our brands.
Shareholders are also rewarded with a significant increase from the amount paid as dividends last year.
We are very happy that Guinness has produced the best and fantastic result. The result is very impressive to us shareholders, with a bottom line of over 1,145% increase and a dividend payout of 7 naira 14 kobo. I think we are very much happy, and then hopefully this is a positive trajectory that they are following.
Guinness Nigeria PLC promises to continue to place premium on the delivery of quality products to its consumers and to be the best performing, most respected consumer product company in Nigeria.
More than 39 billion naira has been added to the total value of the domestic stock market as it maintains a positive posture for a third straight day within the final week of October. Inijon Mekwa tells us more.
Thank you so much. Welcome to the stock market report. Well, it's still a negative market breath as 12 stocks gained and 18 declined. But the all-share index continues that positive movement that it had for 4 days now. It's up today 0.16% and getting really close to that 45,000 points. The market cap is still within 24 trillion naira. Geregu Power PLC is back on the move. We see that it gained 6 naira today to top today's trade, and it closed at 116 naira, and that's after it transacted 13 million of each unit. The others are from the banking counter, and they all shared from their share prices. Well, it's mostly red when we look at the activity charts today. Hopefully from what we had yesterday, only value was able to escape that red splash, 3.38 billion at the close of trade. Now, the summary of today's trade is that the bull won, so we leave the bull right here until tomorrow, see if it can dominate the market again. That's the stock market report. It's back to you.
That's business news. It's back to you, Millicent.
Thank you, Melinda. We're outside the country now, where a Nigerian biochemist, Dr. Eucharia Oluchi Nwaichi, has been named winner of the 2022 John Maddox Prize, which seeks to reward individuals for their work in promoting sound science and evidence despite hostility. Dr. Nwaichi, who works at the University of Port Harcourt, was picked for engaging communities in conflict to address pollution in the oil fields of the Niger Delta. The prize is run and funded by Sense About Science, with the winner receiving £3,000. The judges commended her for developing and testing solutions and putting forward evidence to advancing public discourse around soil recovery in challenging circumstances.
My steps changed when I got this notice. So I walked with my heads up, and I couldn't see myself like the regular scientist. I had all the people who abused me because of my science, because of working with local communities, providing research evidence to push forward their cause, to see that the lost diversity that has eroded the sustainability we find in the ecosystem comes back and provide the livelihood of the people. And I get insulted, I get abused, I get battered for all of these causes. Now I am emboldened to do more as I go back to Nigeria.
Congratulations to her. Still to come on the news at 10. Russian President Vladimir Putin watches his country's first nuclear drill since the invasion of Ukraine. We have that in our international news and around the world in 5. Russian President Vladimir Putin has overseen annual exercises by Russia's strategic nuclear forces at a time of heightened tensions with the West over his 9-month-long war in Ukraine. Simon Puty has more on this and other news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. A large crowd has defied police and protested at the cemetery in northwestern Iran, where Mahsa Amini is buried 40 days since her death in police custody. Video and photos posted online show hundreds of men and women defying security forces to gather in Saqqez. They were heard shouting "Woman, Life, Freedom" and "Death to the Dictator," the two signature chants of anti-government unrest in Iran since Ms. Amini died. The 22-year-old Kurdish woman was detained for allegedly wearing her hijab improperly and died 3 days later. It comes as university students in the Iranian capital Tehran have been holding vigils in her honor. Video here showing students in the entrance hall of a faculty of Khajeh Nasir Tusi University of Technology singing at a vigil. NATO Secretary-General says that Russian allegations that Ukraine is preparing to use a dirty bomb are transparently false. Jens Stoltenberg made the comments on a trip to a US aircraft carrier stationed in the Adriatic Sea. The visit to the ship coincided with a NATO deployment called Neptune Strike, which the alliance describes as a peacetime vigilance mission, including more than 80 aircraft, 14 ships and some 6,000 personnel. The allegations follow hints from Moscow that it might be forced to use a tactical nuclear weapon against Ukraine.
Russia now falsely claims Ukraine is preparing to use a radiological dirty bomb on its own territory. NATO allies rejects this transparently false allegation. Russia often accuses others for what they intend to do themselves.
The UK Prime Minister has been facing his first Prime Minister's question since he officially took up the top job yesterday.
The first British Asian Prime Minister is a significant moment in our national story.
It started with the Leader of the Opposition congratulating Rishi Sunak before Sir Keir Starmer pressed him on the reappointment of the Home Secretary just 6 days after she resigned over data breaches.
Was his Home Secretary right to resign last week for a breach of security.
He asked about the Home Secretary. The Home Secretary made an error of judgment, but she recognised that. She raised the matter and she accepted her mistake. And that's why I was delighted to welcome back into a united cabinet that brings experience and stability to the heart of government.
South Korean Marines in amphibious vehicles have taken part in a large-scale military exercise that organisers said was necessary to prepare for any North Korean threats. The amphibious landing exercise, held near Pohang on South Korea's east coast, is part of the 12-day Hoguk 22 field exercises, which included some drills with US troops, such as river crossing exercises last week. North Korea has condemned the drills for raising tensions and has test-fired rockets and artillery in response. The first formal peace talks aimed at ending 2 years of war between the Ethiopian army and forces from the country's northern region of Tigray have entered its second day in South Africa's capital, Pretoria. The talk was attended by the African Union mediation team, here seen arriving earlier. At stake is an opportunity to end a conflict that has killed thousands, displaced millions, and left hundreds of thousands on the brink of famine in Africa's second most populous nation. The African Union says the United Nations and the United States representatives are participating as observers. And finally, heavyweight boxing champion Tyson Fury has announced he's releasing a version of Neil Diamond's Sweet Caroline for a mental health charity. His fans often belt out the song before his fights, and the 34-year-old is well known for singing classics in the ring. The boxer has now been in the studio, and the track will be released on the 11th of November. All proceeds will go to a men's mental health charity that offers talking groups, sports groups, and other therapy. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. Welcome to Sports News. The national under-17 team, the Flamingos, will face a Group B opponents in Germany in the bronze medal match of this year's FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup holding in India. Well, that game will be decided this Saturday. Well, the Nigerian girls earlier lost to Colombia 6-5 on penalties after playing a goalless draw in regulation time. Well, Spain beat Germany by a 0-0 to set up a gold medal match against Colombia. And that sports news is back to you, Millicent.
Thank you, Aitunde. And the main news again. The Central Bank of Nigeria today announced plans to redesign and reissue the 200, 500 and 1,000 naira notes with effect from December 15, 2022. CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele, who made the decision, said the move is to allow the Apex Bank take control of currency in circulation. That's News at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. Have a good night and stay safe.